Hello, everyone, and welcome to I Am Sicka Church, the podcast. I am so excited to be here with you tonight and to have all these wonderful ladies with me to discuss what is going on with I'm Sicka Church. Give me just a second because I'm doing this all by myself. It is way too much fun to be the sound person and the video person and the host. But we're going to make it all happen. So thanks again for joining me. Tonight I have some of my wonderful, wonderful comrades who said that they would come on and let's have this conversation. And so I want to publicly say thank you, ladies, for taking out your time and jumping on the podcast with us. We have Takima, who is here. Yes, we have Miss Danielle, who is here. And we have Desiree, who is here. Welcome, ladies. So, listen, I'm sick of church. I can say a lot about that.
Yeah,
But,
I think we all can.
Yes,
you know, um, and
absolutely.
it's funny. We were just having a laugh about that before we came on live. And it is funny, but it's also a serious thing. And so we don't want to belittle that, people actually go through hurts and offenses that some people don't actually recover from. So, before we get started, as I always do, I want to give this disclaimer. We're not here to put any church or any individual on blast. We're not doing that. We're just talking from our experiences, how we were able to maneuver through the experience, what came out of it, what did you do. We want this to be a safe place for the conversation, as well as to give tips of, how did you overcome it? What did you do? What was in place? What wasn't in place? And how can we do it better? At the end of the day, we want it to be a place of healing, reconciliation, restoration. So that's my disclaimer. And we're going to get started. Okay. So I'm going to start with Danielle. Danielle, can you tell us about your who you are, first of all, and then a little bit about your church hurt experience?
Yeah, so I'm Danielle. Hey everybody. I am, ordained a leader, ministry leader, all that fun stuff, a part of the fivefold ministry. And I have been at my local church for up there, right? Um, is that me? Uh-oh, what happened? Okay, we back. Uh-oh, is it still recording? Is it just me?
It's not you.
Okay.
It is.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that's a little better. That's good. All right.
I don't know.
It's all good. Um, can you try muting your mic on the I guess you're on your phone. Try that. See if that helps. Okay. All right. So so yes, I've been, in ministry for about 11 years. I have served over AV, done choir, done a marriage ministry. I lead a prophetic council. I've done ministry leaders, been over ministry leaders. I've done just a lot. So when I say I'm, church, in church, fully enthralled, all that good stuff, and to name a few. And so I think being within the different ministries and things, you run into a lot. Of course, I was a ministry leader over ministry leaders before I was ordained in the fivefold ministry. So it definitely prepared me, for, stepping into what I knew the Lord had called me to. In ministry, you're dealing with people. And so you're going to run into some hiccups. You're going to run into some power struggles. I mean, I'm going to try to pinpoint a few, but in general, a lot of it is just people's expectations, right? people kind of having this thought of what it looks like to get maybe closer to a leader, and they perceive that you may have that proximity. And at times, what happens during transition of when you take over a ministry, right? Or even if you start to mature in your gifting and in your calling. And so it's a myriad of situations that I went through. I would say one of the things that I'll just pinpoint one that really got to me, because the other stuff, you deal with it, it's stuff, but for me, I'm just like, whatever. It's just, stuff happens, whether it's people talking about you or people just, not liking that you're in authority or not liking, how you're running things. With the most grace that you can provide, it doesn't matter, right? It's just, you're just going to run into a situation. But I remember when I was really going through my season of, the Lord calling me to fivefold ministry and walking in my gift and really just accepting who he called me to be, and, flowing in that gift. And I remember pretty much being sat down based on a word I had given to somebody. And when I tell you, I was devastated. Again, I had been through stuff before, the caddy, the this, the that. I've been through that. It's like, whatever, par for the course. But that devastated me. It was interesting because there was no real blueprint on how to handle this particular situation. The person just pretty much didn't receive it. And I had to navigate what it looks like. Now, everybody in the scenario, I would have to say, was absolutely gracious, as far as dealing with me. The elders, as far as them handling me and dealing with me. I think the shame that I felt the shame of getting it wrong, the shame of having to feel like I'm going through a process that it feels like punishment. And it's like, when you watch people, and people talk about favoritism and all that other stuff in church, and when you watch people mess up all the time, and it's like, wait, like, now I know other people that go through this process, right? But I could flip that into positive and be like, other people have not gone through this process, right? And so as much as I could be negative and be like, well, it's not fair, that other people have not gone through this, people have done way worse or whatever. I didn't say nothing crazy. I didn't, or whatever. It was just simply somebody not receiving it, right? Again, that was just my perspective in the moment. And I was like, God, you can take this call, you can take this gift, okay? I'm good. You can take all of it. I don't, and again, it was the shame that I felt. It was really me feeling like I'm stepping out on faith. I'm accepting and walking in what you would have me do. And this is the result. I think, again, the elders handled me with as much care as possible, but there were some things said where it was just like, not intentional. Again, this was not an abusive power type of situation. I think it was, for me, particularly with my leader at the time, I was like, well, these people are coming to me telling me that, I'm in error. And I'm like, well, I feel like you should have told me, right? I don't know these people from Adam, right? I'm like, but I would have liked for you to have told me, I would have liked, because it wasn't a situation where it's like the leader said something and then, hey, I'm gonna pass you off over to the elders, right? It wasn't like that. It was like, I'm just getting a random call from the elders. And I'm like, and at the time the relationship wasn't there, right? And so when you talk about being corrected, you want to do it from a standpoint of, who has the relationship with the person, right? Who is the one who, and somebody should have a relationship with them. And so again, I was budding, I was growing in my gift and accepting my call, and all that to say, at the time it felt devastating. At the time it just felt like, again, the elders handled me with care, but what I felt in the moment, I was like, it was the dark night of the soul moment. It was the, God, why have you forsaken me? And I didn't want to move forward and who I knew God was calling me to be. In hindsight, I realized that God, will test us, right? I realized that God was prepping me. I realized that God was always checking that pride piece, right? Because even when you think of the idea of shame, it's not necessarily our thought process in regards to how the others feel about it. It's our thought process of how we feel about it. It's very much I centered, right? So I feel shame because I didn't like how I looked, right? That was more so the problem. And so I really had to go through the journey during that season of, you have to trust me even when it looks like everybody is saying this is wrong, or even the process you through. I learned, right? I got counseled, I got mentored, I got poured into. The prayers during the time was everything. And so as much as I saw it and felt like I was being attacked, I also knew, and sometimes we can have dual feelings and two things can be true, right? And we can feel like this is the worst thing ever. But I also knew in that still small voice somewhere in me during that time, this is absolutely working for my good. And it absolutely is. And so when I transitioned and came out of that, God ordained, all that fun stuff, and then had to step into and transition into other ministries where it's more of the leadership role and things of that nature. I mean, the offenses that I handled in this season from the last, I feel impenetrable, right? The fiery darts were through, but there was such I always say, a shield of protection of peace, right? That faith factor, that where it's like stuff happened, but it was like I was laughing at all my friends, my spouse, everybody was getting more mad than me about stuff that was happening in this last season. And I was just like, it is what it is. It's part, this is just the journey, right? And I can't say God greater, God bless me, God this, if I don't see him in it, right? And so as much as I could, point the finger at the individuals, that wasn't the point. The point was never them. And if anything, it strengthened me in that process, where for the next season, I was able to handle things, duck, water off a duck's back, right?
Okay.
So.
Wow. So that's really good. So, and just so we understand, so you actually it sounds like you gave a prophetic word to someone in the congregation, and then it was the leadership that kind of came to you and said you gave the wrong word, or you didn't give it correctly, or you didn't maybe follow protocol, or whatever the case may have been. So
right.
You were more hard on yourself than they were, but they were trying to correct you.
Right.
And if we're honest, I mean, if we're
honest, I was sat down. No, so I was sat down, and I went through the whole sat down by way of, hey, this is how we're going to approach you delivering word. But let's be clear, I sat myself down. I said, I ain't doing nothing. Like I ain't doing nothing. That's how I was. I was just like, all right, y'all saying I could do this, or they gave me a way in which I could do things and a protocol in which I could do things. And I was like, you ain't got to worry, because I ain't doing nothing. So I sat myself down.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. But it still sounds like it was received in a way that you instead of lashing out at them, you did an introspect type of thing.
Woo! Child.
What did I do? What did I say? Am I
correct?
What was
every
my
time I meet with them, I had meetings with the elders. I had meeting with my pastor, and I process. Emotional EQ is so important. Your connection with God is so important, and all these things I was feeling was all internal. Was all with my support group, with my community, with my spouse. So those human parts of me, that I would, and to God. We had a lot of, conversations, shaking my fist at the Lord. But I used my support system, right, to really pour out all the human thoughts and feelings that I had. So then when I could face those people, No, I submitted to whatever they wanted me to do, right? So even internally, I didn't say, I'm going to sit myself there. Never. And I think that's the other thing. It wasn't that what was said was incorrect, right? And that was the thing I was struggling with, because I'm like, God, I know you told me. It was so many confirmation. Like, God, you told me, you said. It wasn't what was said wasn't incorrect. What I learned there was correction. What I learned was protocol, right? And so it doesn't matter what I deem. It doesn't matter, right? It is what, and at the time, protocol was very ambiguous. So that was the other frustration, right? Because I'm very much a person where it's like, I observe, you ain't got to tell me nothing. I can see what the protocol is, right? So at the time, because that's why I was confused too, because I'm like, well, I know we have protocol, and I know all that stuff, but it's not like we had things, laid out, set in stone. And so again, that's why it felt like I'm being picked on. Okay. Right. Okay. That's why it felt like that at the time. So.
Wow. Okay. Let's go over very good story. We're going to come back to some of that as well, but let's go over to Takima. Can you tell us about your experiences? I know you had more than one.
Yeah, I have more than one, but I'll stick to the one that's more, I guess relevant to this day, because I battle it. I'll say I battle it within the church and outside the church wall, especially with Christians. So I'm Takima. I am a leader at my church, and I do participate. I'm part of different ministries, and I am a certified yoga instructor. So I consider myself, because even with my current church now, I consider myself still like a baby Christian. So I didn't grow up in church, don't know church protocols like that, of that nature. I just know, like, one, I grew up in a house because we were all believers. And just going into church, I'll just see, like, what you see in media, or I'll go with my friends to church here and there, and then take, like, okay, so this is protocol. So I was coming into a season, going to the church, and again, new air, everything is new for me. Everything is new. And that's pretty scary for a person that manages with anxiety. So, and that's another reason why I practice yoga. So people didn't really know, so when I told people that I taught yoga, that's like, whoa, you get sent straight to hell, by many Christians, because they don't know the philosophy behind yoga and things like that. So for me, it started with people spreading rumors that, I'm into witchcraft. I use tarot cards and sage and crystal, all that stuff that's associated with yoga, which is really not associated with yoga. So I came I was dealing with rumors, dealing with, people that were randomly, honestly, people that I had no relationship with, that were randomly tell me, did you discern with God about yoga? And I'm like, y'all don't know the background story of how I got into teaching yoga, because there's a whole story behind that, but I'm following the direction God gave me. He told me that because I love to lead people. I love to encourage people, love to motivate, give word, inspire, all of that. And also I love activity. I love the importance of wellness. And when I took an adaptation to yoga, he said, you can use that as a tool to get my word out to the world. And that's what I use it for. But it's really hard within the church. And what I came to realize, I'm a person that I don't like to be boxed in. I don't like, and a lot of what I perceived, a lot of believers within the church, they're just so religion. And I'm not religion. I'm more spiritual. I'm more concerned about my relationship with God and going to heaven. I'm not concerned about, am I dressed with the right attire for communion? That's not my concern. So I would see certain things happen, and then seeing things being said about me that's not true is hurtful. And then a person that manages anxiety, that deals with overthinking, I would go into church. So now I'm being taken away from the word. And now I'm just like, okay, I have to go into this bubble that I don't want to go into, but it's a defense mechanism that I have to protect myself. I'm like, because I'm like, I'm not stopping yoga. I'm like, I know what God told me to do, and I know how beneficial it has been to my life and other people. And I said, and like Danielle said, this is probably a test from God. Like, how are you gonna handle it? So back in the day, pre Christ for me, I'm ready to go, curse somebody out because you came at me. Because I'm like, so I'm ready to fight. Like, and granted, those natural human feelings come up when I heard stuff come back about me, or I had someone, showing me a video how somebody else is talking about how yoga is demonic. I'm like, okay, I get to choose how I respond to this time. So I felt like that was definitely a test for me. Like, okay, Kima, how are you going to respond? Are you going to draw back and just be like, okay, well, I gave my yes to God, so let me just make sure I'm just focusing on ministry and take me away for what my passion is, what I love to do. I love to help people, and I love wellness. I love the wellness space. Or am I just going to use this opportunity to educate if they're willing to be educated on it? So and honestly, to this day, I can say it is still a back and forth struggle. But what I am now seeing, because what I'm starting to get comfortable with, and I actually spoke about this not too long ago with my own bishop, I'm like, people, the stereotypes, the things, especially, and again, a lot of times people within the church are so boxed in mentally, they don't know what's out there. And so they're probably going off teachings from their grandpa's grandma, sister, uncle, whatever, from like 80 years ago, what's the protocol in the church or how you should operate. And then it's a person like me coming in, like, yeah, I'm a believer, but I'm still broken. I still need healing. But I see the world. So it's like, people like me coming in, you can't come and say to them directly, like, oh, you wearing red lipstick, you're going to hell because you wear red lipstick and stuff, like all of those little things. And I'm like, and now I'm telling Bishop, like, this type of space like this is needed, because this is why people like myself, that is a leader in the church, don't want to lead anymore. I don't, because if for me, it looks like I'm getting looked at what I'm doing outside the walls, rather than what I'm doing like for God and how I'm showing up in my service. So it's still a back and forth, but when I'm in this current season now, I am confident in God's word. I'm confident I am doing what he told me to do, because I'm seeing the benefits of it, because I stuck to it and not let rumors, not let someone saying like, well, I believe what you're doing is demonic. And it's like, okay, but you're not God. God ain't telling me that. So, and that gives me a sense of peace. Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And then also God will show me I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, because he's placing me in rooms that I did not even expect, to the point that I'm seeing other churches that's willing to open their mind, and they're like, yes, we need wellness. Yes, therapy. Yes, you got prayer and God and all of that. But no, we need some clinical therapists. Some people need that. Some people need medicine. Some people need the yoga. They need exercise. So I am happy that I am in the perfect position at this point, even though I face that church hurt, that I'm using that. And to show people right in their face, like, God's still honoring, because I'm still submitting unto him and doing what he said to do. He told me to do this. And if you want to learn that yoga's not demonic, I am here to show you and teach you that it's not, if you're willing to learn. So that's where I'm at as far as like with the church hurt. But now I'm just in a mental space of like, all right, even though I get sick of it, I really do. I really get the thing when it says yoga's demonic and all of those things. I do get sick of it, but then I switch in my mindset and I'm like, okay, I need to respond different, because this is why God got me here. He's like, you're trying to bring people to the kingdom, right? Use this. Use this. So, and I think of it also like a prime example, like I have like one time I went to like a lounge with my friend, like I don't go out, but if you're in a place like a club, a lounge or something, that's not your thing, use that moment or whatever opportunity you have to get get people to God. So whatever, I'm using this moment, my hurt and my yoga as a tool because I want to build up the kingdom because I want people to go where I'm going. And I want people to feel the peace that rests on my life because I gave God my yes. And I'm doing what he's, that's all. That's all. Like, all I'm doing is doing what God told me to do. But I think the churches really need to recognize and realize like the people like that's coming in nowadays, like we are real people, like we are real people, some straight from the street. And we got to approach them a certain way with love. It's a way to correct. It's a way to correct. It's a way to express like you don't agree or whatever like that. And there's some things you just need to keep it to yourself or talk to it with God. And especially, nowadays I'll be like, you take that up with God. Don't tell me that yoga's demonic. don't come to me with that stuff because it is a trigger. It's a trigger, and then I have to put myself in that mindset. Okay, how are you going to respond? So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's major because it doesn't necessarily have to just be yoga. It could be, anything. We were briefly talking about even the title of this podcast and the play that's coming out, and it's called I'm Sick of Church. And people automatically say, how could you be sick of church? And I'm like, well, I'm not sick of church. I'm an elder. I've never been sick of church. I've always loved church. I'm sick of church people, but I'm not sick of church.
So I'm like, I love, and that's why I be like, I love, 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 love my bishop and my pastor. Like, I love the word. I love my growth. I love that I get fed. All of it, they even embrace what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, it's always the people that inside the church that gets people to get away from the church. So that's why I always try to tell people it's not the actual church. It really probably ain't even the pastors or your ministers. It's them folks. And it's a box. A lot of it is a box.
Absolutely. And you said something that was really key, and we're going to go back to it in just a second after I let Desiree speak, but choose how you respond.
Yes.
That was major. I mean, because at the end of the day, we are Christians and we should act and speak and do things as Christians. And sometimes, people push us. If let's be honest, they push us all the way to the edge of, and just knowing how to respond, and also having that support system that understands what your mission is, because again, protocol says that if God gives you something that you're supposed to do, then you are supposed to take it to your leaders and say, this is what God is showing me. This is what God is telling me to do. And Bishop is very supportive. I've seen posts on Facebook where he's like, yeah, that, I didn't know that. Like, he's always supporting what you're doing. And I'm like, that's the kind of leadership that you need, that understands that, this is a different time. Yeah, it might have been that. It may still be that. But it's just like anything else. Some people will use it for good and some people won't. But having that support system behind you is really key. That's like major, because that's where you get that, I guess, backbone to continue standing up.
Yes. It's like a fire that lights in you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that story. Let's move on over to Miss Desiree. Tell us about your story.
Well, Desiree Williams. My church heart, it started at an earlier age, like an early age. And I feel like it was the beginning. Around age 12 or 13, my family, we were really involved in the church, heavily involved in the church. My mom was leading pretty much all the youth organizations within the church, running summer camps, did a lot of things for the church. My sister over the dance ministry. So our family was pretty much in every ministry, the choir, everything. Over time, people became jealous, if you want to sense, or wondering why, like, we were just doing this out of the kindness of our heart. Like, we didn't want anything in return. Like, we were just really doing it, like, just because to honor and honor God, like, truly, because this is what we were called to do. And I remember, like, when it just started to get real chaotic, where they were really hard on my mom and like saying like, oh, she had to do this, and she was just saying she didn't want to accept the pay, things like that. And over time, things built up. And I remember when they were just like, my mom just telling me like, yeah, like they basically kicked us out of the church essentially. At the time, my mom didn't go into detail of like everything of what happened. She just said, hey, like, you know, we gotta leave. So that was the beginning as far as like at a young age, about to go into high school, ending middle school. It's like, what is going on? Like, God, I feel like we're doing everything in the church. We're doing everything you're telling us to do, but why do we have to leave now? Because people are jealous. And that was it. And that one thing over time, the one thing I will say, I never strayed away from God. I questioned him. I definitely questioned him. I said, God, like, why is this? Like, why? Like, what is going on? Why my family? Like, now we got to go to a whole nother church. You know, we got to start all over. And it was just a rough transition at first. But then as I got to that new church, of course, there's always something. I realized I started to learn, like, any church you go to, there's going to be something. And once again, guess what? I wound up doing dance ministry. My mom wound up being over the youth again at another church. Started a whole another summer camp. So it's just like, and we had issues at that church because of people. And that's the one thing. Like in church, we had to realize that it's not about us. It's about God. And I think people get so caught up in the politics of just wanting to do something, and if you're not called to do it, you're not called to do it. And it's like, it's like they want to know, well, why are you doing all that? That doesn't take all that. Well, no, this is what we're doing because we're honoring God. So that's the one thing as far as like that started my church hurt. Very simple. It wasn't nothing, too complex, but that was the root of it, and it happened at a young age. And it made questions arise. Like I just had so many questions, like, God, like why, like what is going on? But essentially, the one thing I will say that my mom always just stayed positive. She never really engaged in the drama. She always just say, she always just put her hands back and say, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna let you do you, and I'm gonna go ahead and trust God and keep on going. And it just, I noticed over time, it didn't matter wherever we went, we were still blessed. Even if it was something, even to this day, like now I'm over a dance ministry at my church, and there's drama, people, it's always people, but you have to know that, hey, if I'm called to do this, no man, nothing can stop it. So that's my church hurt. The people in the church.
Yeah. That is so powerful. When I started doing this, just to give you guys a little background, I had about 2 or 3 different people who came to me and said, basically, I'm sick of church. One person was like, I'm never going back to church again. And I mean, and they were valid stories. They were valid reasons. One young lady had kind of basically said that, her pastor said, cursed at her and, told her not to come back to the church again. And so she was like, I'm never going back to church again. And it hurt my heart to even hear her say that, because, I'm like, you're not sick of church, because the church is the bride of Christ. He can't do anything to hurt you. He's not going to do anything to hurt you. Christ is Christ, and I was trying to explain it like, but people, on the other hand, are trying to be Christ-like. There's a difference. A Christ-like person, not Christ. And so I gave her the example. And I was like, if you were in the park, and I've said this many times on these podcasts, I know people get tired of hearing it, but it just makes logical sense to me. If you're in a park and you get in a fight, you don't go around telling people you got park hurt. You never say, oh, I got park hurt. No, you say such and such jumped me in the park and beat me up. A person. So, I think we have to really be careful and change the narrative, especially as Christian leaders, that if we hear someone going down that path, they're like, well, back up, because what did God say about this? And how is he really in this, in the midst of what you're talking about? Or is this strictly human beings? We're all, we all have fault. We were made that way. That's our nature. We're gonna mess up. that's just the way it is. That's why he sent his son to save us, because we were going to mess up. So just even thinking about it from that perspective. And I love how you were saying, you guys were doing stuff in church and to no fault of your own. It was just the people that were, it could have been jealousy. I think the higher you go up the totem pole, the more adversity you're going to have for no reason a lot of times. But it's just a thing. It's not, you cannot get away from it. So listen, everyone, jumping from church to church to church to church is not going to help you. You're not going to get away from it. I promise you, because every church, you're going to find some level of what we're calling church hurt. You're going to find some type of offense there. And offense is in the Bible. So why wouldn't it be in the church? He even tells us how to handle offense in the Bible, because he knows we're going to always run into it. So if you don't go by the principles that's in the Bible to tell you, like, go to the person and talk to them. That's the biggest mess up, I really think, in all of this stuff that happens with the offenses, is because you don't go to the person and talk to them about it. And then if the person don't receive you, you're supposed to go get someone else and take them with you. If they don't accept those two, then you go to leadership. And my bishop, he says, if someone comes to me, my first question is, what did the person say about it? Did you have a conversation with them? And if you didn't, I don't want to hear any more of the story. Go talk to them first. And then if you still need to come back to me, come back to me. But we have the Bible for a reason. We have to use it, and follow what it says. If we follow those steps and we communicate, we could squash a lot of the issues that happen in church before it even gets to the level of leadership having to step in and people having, to come to your rescue, because he gave us the word to be able to handle these situations. So I love that you said that. The other thing that I thought of while you were talking, is don't back away from your ministry assignment because of people.
Absolutely. I agree on that. And that's one thing. It's always there. Your gift is your gift. I was just saying the other day, what's for you is for you. What's not for you is not for you. So focus on that thing that God is, that gift that you have inside of you. He gave it to you for a reason.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter where you go. It's going to always be with you.
Absolutely.
And he's going to give you an opportunity to use it and minister, because you never know. It could be one person that you're engaging with, and you have an opportunity to bless them.
Yes.
And show the love of Christ to them, because we're the light. We're the salt of the earth.
Yes.
But we're sometimes, like they say, you're the only Bible someone may see. So that's not just in the church, and it's also outside of the church when we're at work, school, everywhere we go. So I just try to think about it like that.
Absolutely. I agree. So ladies, tell me, let's talk about, we kind of talked about your stories. You kind of gave us a snapshot into how you handled it. What encouraging words would you give, outside of what we already talked about, to someone who is dealing with church hurt, who's dealing with offense, who is saying, you know what, I really am sick of church. I'm not going back to church. I don't want to go to church. What inspiring word would you give to a person like that? And we'll start back with Danielle and go to Kima and then to Desiree.
So context matters. Context matters only because, is it my friend? Is it somebody that, I'm not as familiar with? It matters. And I think that the first thing that comes to mind is, hey, what was your expectations going in? Right. Mm-hmm. And I also want to preface it with, outside of just straight up abuse, right? Outside of abuse, outside of just straight up witchcraft, like outside of just demonic influence, because that's real and it happens. We got a lot of people claiming church hurt from people that don't even belong to God. Okay. So we gotta make it very clear. Outside of that, it actually happened with people, who belong to him. Amen. And the people who did it belong to him. I think that it's about expectation. You know, you can't change in anything in life. You can't change another person, right? But you can change your perspective, and you can take away what did God show you about you, right? And so I think it's about, hey, what was your expectation, right? Going into it. Let's go all the way back and let's look at what your expectations were. Because I think, you know, in the body of Christ, our expectations of our leaders, of people at church, is very high. And it's straight up idolatrous, right? And you know, we don't realize it, right? And especially in Black church, we don't realize it. You know, I'm not going to go through a whole history lesson of church, but you know, who the church has been to people, particularly Black people and Black communities over decades and decades, has been very influential, very father-like, very activist-like, right? You went to the church, your local church, for everything. They completed a deficit in our family, right, in our homes. And so when you think about it from that standpoint, there is a pedestal that we put the people in the church on, leaders in the church on. And so we come into it as if, and with our familial baggage, and we come in and we like, oh, they like my auntie, and oh, they like my sister, and oh, they like my cousin, and oh, they like my daddy, and oh, they like the mama I never had, or the daddy that, you know, wasn't the best relationship. And so in our brain, we assign people roles that they never even agreed on, right? We assign them roles. And so my question is, what was the expectation? Did you think that the man of God or woman of God was literally Jesus and could walk on water, right? And did you get hurt because the scales then dropped off and you have seen this person's humanity? And so those are the questions I got to start, you know, pulling back and asking. Again, this is outside of straight up abuse, evildoers, all that stuff. This is, hey, these are good people, but they're literally people, right? They maybe had a bad day. They maybe had a bad moment. They maybe went through a season. Hey, maybe they did fall away from God's precepts and his statute, but that person was once honorable, right? And so therefore you got to walk away honorably. And I always go back to David and Saul. Listen, Saul, he was cutting up on David. Now that's the whole abuse scenario, right? And Saul was God's man, was God's man, right? But David always saw him, right? Continued to see him as God's man and God's anointed. And he said, I'm going to run from the abuse. So that's the other thing. We got to run from abuse. I'm going to run. Amen. But how can we be honorable in our thought process, even if somebody was in the wrong, straight up? And even if it's something where, hey, we should all forgive, but I don't think I can reconcile, right? I still need to make this separation. But how do we look at it from a standpoint that's not, I'm wounded? No, that is a trick of the enemy. Anything that incapacitates us, that we allow to literally cause us to be stagnant and stand still, is a trick of the enemy. It's problematic. So we can't just take it and just be like, well, I'm just not going to. No. That's not of God, right? No. So I think it's about, what was your expectation? Was there a misunderstanding? I think to your point, Kay, that was so profound. We don't follow the Bible when it comes to dealing with people. Reconciliation. Again, we come with our familial stuff. If we address something, we think it's the end of the relationship. If we confront, that means I got to anticipate nuclear war. Listen, I don't know about nobody else, but in some of my family dynamics, addressing means we're not talking no more, right? And so we come into church. All right, I'm not going to say nothing because, I don't want to get put out and cut up, right? And so that's why you have these extremes of, I don't want nobody to see me. And, we think that confrontation is the end of a relationship. And so we don't even know, we misunderstand. We don't, we want to be right. And we're really not applying all the amazing things that God laid out in the Bible, the fruit of the Spirit. We're not applying none of that. We're not trying to reconcile. No, we just walk away. And we don't realize it. I think that when we really look at people from a standpoint of, they are people in need of the same Jesus that I'm trying every day to serve, right? And I can't base that one experience as the whole of them, right? And I think we allow a lot of good ministries and communities to fall to the wayside just because, number one whole person in the whole church, right? One whole, and so it's about putting things into really perspective, right? And I think we will allow the one, whether it's the church mother or the this or the that said one cross thing, and it's like, my world is shattered and I can't go back. So all that to say, it depends on what it is, right? But I have to ask, what was the expectation is really the main thing.
That's really good. I think that's really good. What's the expectation? Takima, you are cutting up over there on the camera, so tell us what you're feeling.
Look, I was about to throw this water bottle. When I start feeling the word, I don't know why I start want to launch stuff, but yeah, that was. So for me, and then, you took the words right out of my mouth, but I'm gonna just add to what Danielle said. So for me, in order to, if you are dealing with the feeling of I'm sick of church, you really gotta. You just really first got to know how to deal with conflict and resolution within a church. Now, again, I still call myself a little baby Christian. And I wasn't, when this situation happened, my go-to was, again, what I'm familiar with, withdrawal. I withdrawn, but then it's like, again, that's the trick of the enemy. That's what the enemy wanted. He's like, oh, these church people don't like yoga now, and so, and it's like, okay, I'm withdrawing back. So now I'm not talking to people about nothing. I don't want you to know nothing about me. It was to the point, and it's like, you got to put yourself in the mind frame too. It's like, go back to my original purpose of being here in this building. Do I get fed? And who is feeding me? My bishop and my pastor, not the people. The bishop and the pastor. So that was really, for me, a true fight, that I'm not going to leave this church, but also at the same time, it's not Christian life to be so withdrawn within the church too, because you're still trying to protect your feelings in yourself. So even, and I can say, till this very moment, I'm still learning to navigate through that. But also, and it's interesting, because what people don't know about yoga, they tie a lot of Christianity teachings in yoga to philosophy. So I have to look back at folks when they give their opinions or their insight about what I do or how I live. It's just your human perception of me. This is not what God's saying about me. This is just your perception, and you're human. And this is natural for us to have different perceptions, especially about things we don't know. So you can share what you want to share. God bless you. But it doesn't resonate with me. So now, even when I get confronted with certain stuff, even if something that may have hurt my feelings or whatever, now I know how to handle conflict resolution. Yes, I'm a leader, but I have leaders above me. That's not the bishop and pastor that I can go to, or even people, even if it's people you trust, like find someone I'm sure it's that one person that you trust with your stuff or how to handle you or whatever. And especially if you're new to church, if you're new in the building, find someone, get connected with someone, because that actually helped me grow overall within the church. I connected with someone, and now I can go to that person and then they are close with the higher leaders. So if we do need intervention, the intervention or a mediator or something like that, find someone that you could truly trust. Don't hold it in, because when I was even holding it in, because again, I'm the person, I overthink, I manage anxiety, so that will make me withdrawn from me serving within the church. Like I was there at one point physically, but mentally, I'm all over here. I'm on the defense mode. Why is she looking at me like that? She looked at me again because that was the one I got offended by, so I'm all in those feels. And I'm like, no, I had to reflect back on that purpose of why I am here, why I'm growing, why am I evolving, like why do I love the work? So it's all of those things you got to center back on what your main purpose is, and just learn, try to learn, because they do, and I didn't know about it either. They talk about conflict resolution in the Bible. I didn't know that. I'm like, oh, talk about this. This is awesome. So, and there's different ways to handle it, because conflict resolution outside the church looks a little different. But at the same time, we could handle conflict resolution, but involve God's word with it. Now I know how to handle it. So I'm going to voice, and if you hurt me, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, but I love you. And we can have a healthy argument about it. We can whatever, but it's like, I still love you. I'm still going to love on you. You can still have your perception of me. God bless you. And I'm like, you could talk to Jesus about it. And if you're willing to learn, I am here. And I always extend that, because again, if people are human. People, a lot of times they are afraid to learn different things. It's okay. I'm just knowing, like, whenever you're ready, I am here. I'm here to help you. I show grace for people, and some people just be people, and I just know how to pretty much have boundaries too. So that's important, to have boundaries within the church. And I'm leaving it at that. Yeah.
All right. So Desiree, tell us.
Ooh, I don't know how can I follow that one? That was good, both of you guys. But for me, as I was just thinking, like, okay, like what would I tell somebody that's been like with if they're dealing with church hurt? Like, what would I tell them? What advice would I give them? There's a couple things that came in my mind. It was, number one, don't be discouraged, because people can be discouraged, and they can, someone may say something to you, and you may shy away. Like, I was that type of person. I would shy away sometimes. Like, just, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna, whatever. Maybe this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And then also, another thing I would say, know what God has called you to do. Because no matter what, people are always going to have, like we said, people are always going to have something to say. But think about, what is God saying about you, and just leaning on God. Like, seek Him when you're having these problems. As easy as I know it's easier to say seek God first in everything that we do, but really truly seek Him. Like, if you feel discouraged, or you feel like you're dealing with church hurt, go to God. Say, God, okay, because our human ourselves will want to, like, you throw the water bottle, go off, or or want to talk back immediately. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes, yes, you want to address it. Like, yes, we want to address the person, but sometimes in that moment, it's not the right time, because our flesh is going to go off and yell and probably say some things that are not of God, right? So just remembering that, and just, number one, just seek God. Like, God, how do I guide me? I know I need to address the situation. I'm not going to put it under the rug and not avoid the confrontation, because we need that conversation. You need to have that conversation, and communicate and be open. But God, lead me. Give me the right words to say. Like, because really, ultimately, He's going to give you the right words to say. So I think about it like that. I'm a very simple person, so I try to, even though I've been through the things I've been through at my young age, I still know that just seeking God, when you try to do it on your own, when you try to address it on your own, it doesn't always work out in your favor.
Right.
It doesn't. It's like you need that correction. Like, yeah, God will say, yeah, they were wrong, but the way you responded back, that wasn't of me either. Yeah. So just being mindful of that, and just not, like I said, don't be discouraged, because it's everything. Even think about that's just inside the church. Think about when you get outside of it. So just remembering that whole mindset. I just try to think about it like that. So I would always just encourage somebody, don't be discouraged, and always just seek God when these crazy things come up, because there's always gonna be something.
Always. That is really good. I think that all three answers were spot on. And I hope that people got some nuggets out of this, things that they can do, things that they can say. At the end of the day, we do not necessarily have church hurt. We have people hurt. And how do we handle people? With conflict resolution. And how do we handle people? By looking in the Bible and seeing what God says we should be doing in all situations. If we seek the answer, we'll usually find the answer. Our problem is we don't take the time to get the answer, or the answer's not coming fast enough. We live in this fast-paced world, and we just want go, 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 go. We don't want to sit back and wait and sit in his presence and say, hey, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? Lead me, guide me, direct me. We don't do that very seldomly do we do that. Let's put it that way. And again, this conversation is general in nature. We definitely are not talking about, hideous crimes like sexual abuse and things like that. Those are so much deeper, so much more that has to go into those things, even though these principles still apply. But I understand the severity of something like that. So again, we're just talking about how you look at things, something about somebody stepped on your toe. We can handle that. Okay. If it's something that major, you definitely need to go to your leadership. You need to reach out. If you can't reach out in your church, you need to call a hotline or get a counselor, find help outside of the church, because a lot of churches aren't even equipped to handle things like sexual abuse and stuff like that. So we have to also be mindful, what does my church offer? Go to them and say, hey, this has happened to me, or this is what's going on, and I need to talk to someone about it, and take it from there. And most of the time, they're going to be able to lead you into the right path, give you someone to talk to, or, tell you to some place you should go or some place you should call. You're not alone. And I think that's the plot of the enemy. He wants us to think that we're alone. He wants to put us in this little bubble, and then we start having all of these crazy thoughts and all of these things, and we get to racing, and like Takima said, the anxiety kind of kicks in, and we blurt out something, or we say something, or we do something that we're going to regret later. And that's what he wants. I mean, he wants to, he's the father of chaos. So he wants to plant that so that, things go awry. But if we just calm ourselves, take a moment, step back, and, what is God saying? What does he want us to do? How do I handle this? And pray, and pray, and pray. Oh, and pray. If we could do those things, I think that we would probably squash a lot of the stuff that happens, or that we hear about that, happens in church settings and things like that. So I just want to say thank you, ladies, for your time. It went so fast. We have to do this again. We have to do a part 2.
Yeah, this is a beautiful
Absolutely.
conversation.
Yes.
Thank
We have
you.
to do a part 2 because we only got through 2 questions. We had like maybe 2 more to go. But I so appreciate you for jumping on and just sharing your heart, listening to it from different perspective. This was called the Millennial Takeover because, I know that each generation kind of handles things differently. And I think that sometimes that gets lost in translation too, because what we did as a church, in 1930s and the 40s, 50s, whatever the case may be, and what we're doing now is like night and day.
Right.
Not the word,
Yes.
because the word never changes, but the function of the church and what's going on in the churches and how things kind of, interact, it's like night and day. So each generation has a different set of things that they have to deal with, as they come into knowing Christ and coming into, being in a community of people, of believers. So I wanted to really talk to the millennials and get your viewpoint and what do you do? What are you hearing? I'm sure my mother would never have said anything about yoga in a church setting. And she definitely probably would have said it was demonic, because that's probably what was taught when she was coming up and she was in church, so we have to continue to evolve in our thinking as well, and just ask God, like, what is it? So I want to leave all of this with saying, if God is instructing you to do something and you've prayed about it and you are 100% sure that this is what he's telling you to do, don't let anyone stop you from doing what he has called you to do, because he's not going to hold those other people accountable. He's going to hold us accountable for what he put us on this earth to do. So any final words, ladies?
My final word, I just want to say, like reiterate what Kay said. Listen, follow God. I think it's so important. I think a lot of times we get caught up in offenses because we have had some way, some form of a disconnect with our, vertical relationship, right? That it affects our horizontal. And I think it's so important that we are seeking the Father and letting Him really dictate how we govern. And I think it's also important that we care for the totality of ourselves. We are body, we are soul, we are spirit. And I think we in church focus on the spiritual components and we don't realize how off balance that we are. And so we're not caring for our soul. We're not allowing the Father to wash, clean up our soul, and we're not growing in our soft skills, our emotional understanding within ourselves. And so if we don't do it within ourselves, it makes it that much harder to be able to relate to people, right? We're bringing all of our stuff to church, right? And because it's very familial, right? Very much fellowship, we bring our family stuff there. And we wonder why we have trouble relating. We wonder why. And so it's so important to do that internal work and care for the totality of ourselves. I love, I'll shout with the best of them. I love the word with the best of them. I love all of it. But I think we have negated a lot of parts of ourselves, and now it's catching up. And just to pinpoint on the millennial part, millennials want Jesus. We just want God. We just want to walk in what we're supposed to do. Some of our predecessors and our families maybe dropped the ball in some ways, and we're just really trying to pick up the baton and run with it. And we don't want all the rigmarole. That's the old school stuff.
Yeah.
We don't want all that. We just right. So, for our generation, when we start getting, caught up in some church politics stuff, right? Or if how you even handle, how you approach, even if I'm in error, from a standpoint of the, you need to, from that, that arrogant, right? I'm not journeying with you standpoint, but I know more than you standpoint, then yeah, you get those who have fallen away, who don't want to come into the actual building. So I think it's important that, like you said, to echo what you said, that we just learn some different ways to reach the people. Amen.
You're muted.
Amen. Any final thoughts, Takima, or
Yeah, I would say what I always center back to, and I preach this pretty much all the time. Make sure God's voice is louder than the world. Make sure, in meaning that even, the people around you, I mean, granted, you follow your pastors, your ministers, but God's voice got to be louder than what anybody else says. So, and then if you give them your yes, you just making sure that you're creating a space. So, anytime anybody want to come with some noise or whatever, or tell you how you should live your life, go to God. When you give him your yes, you're submitting unto him. So, if he didn't say that about you, it ain't true. It's someone else's perception. So just always be intentional about that. That God's voice, even louder than your own voice. Because again, we could get hurt within the church, and then like Desiree said, like, you sitting yourself down. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Danielle said that. You sitting yourself down because you done told yourself that, because I've done that too. And it's like, God ain't tell you that. Like when I almost left my church, and God and I used to be like, God ain't tell me to leave, yeah, so I'm here. But just really be intentional. If you really got a deep relationship, you got a relationship with God, you got to be on it. Because I'm telling you, when you become a Christian, you say yes. That's when everything comes. We get hit the worst, I think, as Christians. especially with the world. So yeah, just make sure y'all just tap in.
I
Tap in.
agree.
Yeah. Because it helped me. So that's why I tell people where I'm in this very moment sitting here on this podcast is because my guests.
Mm.
That's it. People ask, "Oh, you got this?" God told me to do it. I did it. So it's not simple, but it is. It can be simple. It's that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the last thing for me. I would just say for anybody, just like kind of piggybacking off everyone what you guys were saying. Make sure that you take care of you first because you have to make sure that you're healed. One thing, just thinking about the church, that's the place where we all come to. It's like a hospital. I work in healthcare, so I always kind of relate things back to that too. We all go to the church for recovery because
Yeah.
we're hurt. So I always try to remember. I'm sure there's other people in the church that are dealing with that hurt too, right? So
Mhm.
it's like I always, once again, go to God. If you don't understand why they're coming at you, seek Him. God, how do I address it? And just number one, don't be discouraged. Like I was saying, that's just one thing. Like, do not be discouraged.
Mhm.
Things are going to happen in the church, but we have to remember that we're equipped.
Yeah.
Once we say that, yes, God puts that covering over us. So it's that we're equipped. If it comes at you, okay, all right. What's next, God? I know you got me. So just I just so that's it.
That's
That's it.
awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this has been wonderful. Thank you, ladies, again for all of your words of wisdom, for sharing your
Mm-hmm.
stories with us. Everyone, I hope you can catch the replay of the podcast. You can find this on YouTube. You can find it on Facebook, Instagram. Also, there is a stage play that is coming up August the 17th. It is called I'm Sick of Church. It is hilarious. So please don't come in, with your nose like this because it's meant to be funny but serious at the same time. So that's why we're doing the podcast so we can talk about the really, really serious stuff here. But when you come to the play, I want you to have a great time. I want you to see it all unfold. But also be able to just kind of like, you know what? Yeah, that happened to me and laugh about it. Like, yeah, that used to be me. I'm her, So if you can come out, it's August the 17th. It's going to be at Venice Island Performing Arts in the Manioc section of Philadelphia. Right now we have a 1:00 show and a 5:00 show. We are on Eventbrite. You can find us on all of your wonderful Facebook, Instagram, all of those places. You can reach out to me. But I would love to see you in the place. If you can make it, it's going to be awesome. We got some great singers. We got some great actors, dancers. We're going to do it all. So hope you can come out. But with all of that said, I want to thank you for all of our guests that were able to get on, those that are going to listen in the future. Thank you so much. And until the next time, we want you to stay inspired and we want to stay in the word of God and we want you to not be so sick of church. Okay. I love you, ladies. Have a great night. Thank you so much, everyone. Good night.
All right. Good night. Bye.